What does Billie Eilish, Lana Del Rey, Deepika Padukone and Alexa Demi have in common? Well, apart from being all women, they have a characteristic eye feature that gives them their unique looks. For most people, the border of the lower eyelid covers the white of their eyes, the sclera. However, in a relatively small proportion of our population, a loose lower eyelid reveals more of the sclera than normal, essentially rounding out the eyes. In the medical literature, this is often referred to as scleral show. You can read more about it in this article that we wrote about last year. However, in pop culture, it's often referred to as sad eyes or sanpaku eyes, literally translating to the three whites from Japanese superstition. The idea is that the exposure of the eyeball itself can be divided into three regions: sanpaku above, the iris, and sanpaku below. If you have sanpaku above, then according to superstition, you are a danger to the world. And if you look at the cult leader Charles Manson's photos, it's kinda easy to see where that idea comes from. You wouldn't make an expression like that unless you were, well, let's say a bit different. This type is much more rare than the others, and in my experience, I don't think I've ever seen it on anyone at resting position. For aesthetics, we're more interested in sanpaku below, or sad eyes. The idea of calling this sad eyes comes from the fact that we relax our lower eyelids when we're upset. Every time the orbicularis oculi muscles are quite slightly tensed, but they're never fully relaxed, meaning that for most people, the sclera below the eye is not actually exposed. Only when you relax fully that it is associated with sadness. It's also associated with tiredness. Try it for yourself. Completely relax your eyes as if you've just worked back-to-back 10-hour shifts and see how you look. Some other nitpicky details that only the staff at Cooves looks at is the positioning of the most inferior dip of the lower eyelid border. In simple speak, where the curvature of your lower eyelid is at its lowest point is important too, as it affects how much scleral show you're going to have. Beyond a certain limit of, say, eyelid exposure or sagging, most clinicians would recommend a canthopexy or an eyelid tightening or lifting procedure. But you can have a perfectly normal lower eyelid where your eyelid just dips unusually low as a natural feature of your face, giving you, however, at the end, heavy scleral show. Surgically correcting this scenario may not be appropriate because the eyelid is actually fine, it's just a natural shape. Scleral show appears to be most common in Middle Eastern ethnicities, and for one reason or another, it just seems to be very commonly surgically altered in this region as well. Now that you're armed with the knowledge of what to look for, take a look at the villains in these Disney movies. My personal favorite is Jafar. And when creating a character or drawing a portrait of another human face, a lot of deliberate thought goes into every feature. This characteristic feature of high scleral show and low dip is by no mistake whatsoever. Little Mermaid is trending right now, so we're going to take a look at the villain, Ursula. Same features, beady iris, high scleral show above the iris to indicate madness and hyperexpression, which, let's be real, that's kind of Ursula's character, and also below the iris to emphasize that she's very tired. You may notice some other features: high upper eyelid exposure, which is very formally called pretarsal show or tarsal platform, and all of them have this, all of the villains, from Cruella de Vil, Ursula, Jafar, Hades, even Claude Frollo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, who, mind you, is a European character. So drawing villains with these characteristic eye features is not a deliberate attack on a specific ethnic group. Don't make that mistake. My best guess for why Disney villains are drawn this way is because we innately have strong feelings towards faces with these features. The overwhelming majority of attractive faces from cultures around the world do not have heavy eye bags, scleral show, high pretarsal show, under-eye dark circles. All of these features combined become the signs of a tired, weary face. In Umair Akram's doctoral thesis on insomnia, these were the features that were modified to represent a tired versus alert-looking face. By drawing Disney heroes in the exact opposite way, young children differentiate youthfulness with modernity from the tired old ways of thinking that most villains have. Every Disney movie has a message, and one way to show that is through the eyes. So it would seem that these features are conditioned from an early age with villainous roles and feelings. However, scleral show can be attractive, or more correctly, a differentiating feature, but it only works in a few cases. In Disney villains, like I said, it's not just scleral show, but all of what I like to call the four horsemen of tired looking eyes: high upper eyelid exposure, lower eyelid exposure, dark circles, and sometimes negative cant or tilt. All of the attractive women at the beginning of the video had really only one out of the four of these features, which is the key takeaway here. Every other characteristic of their eye region is within normal measures for their ethnicity. What you need to understand is that this is a sexually dimorphic feature. That doesn't mean women have a higher likelihood of having it present than men, but it benefits women more so if they do have it compared to men. Women typically have rounder eye shapes than men do, who have more rectangular ones. Having a lax lower eyelid adds to the curvature of the eyes, what some people call doe eyes, round and childlike. On men, however, this same feature of roundness goes against the dimorphism of their sharp and well-protected eyes. As our biologist Simon Groom explains in this podcast episode, men may have developed and prefer eyes more like this to increase their protection from animals and other aggressive men. So following that train of thought, scleral show hair on a man would be a disadvantage, and as with many facial features, beauty is linked with function, so if a feature puts you at a disadvantage, it's generally not considered attractive, with a few exceptions. That is why, despite having sad eyes, these women are all praised for their aesthetic, persona, and beauty. They embody and lean into their sad girl femme fatale personas. If Billie Eilish looked like this all the time with no scleral show instead of her signature deadpan look, then her entire brand really wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. The way people look has a lot to do with how their personalities and personal brandings are shaped. In one of our earlier videos, we spoke about some interesting evidence pointing towards a person's face influencing their name. That's a weak example, but even that had some convincing evidence. If you have sad eyes, then people will logically make judgments that you are perpetually sad and that is your persona. Many men and women don't want to be seen that way, so they surgically correct the lower eye with the canthopexy and the upper eye with the blepharoplasty, the dark circles with fillers or lasers, and the negative canthal tilt with the canthoplasty. However, if you do have this feature, it's not necessarily worth changing. It depends on whether you have the other 3 eye features that are deviant from normal values as well. That being said, if you want personalized aesthetics advice for your situation from our team of doctors, then you can order an assessment over at the Curves website. You can join the Discord community to ask more questions and listen to the podcast episodes in your free time to learn more about facial aesthetics.